At exactly 7:30 a.m. on a cold Saturday morning, my father's text flashed on my screen. Pay the bill by tonight, or you are no longer part of this family. Just 10 minutes earlier, my sister had demanded 6 lakh rupees for a party I never agreed to. What I did next, quietly, before my morning coffee had even finished brewing, left my entire family in absolute ruins. None of them saw it coming. And today, I am going to show you every single receipt. My name is Dia Sen. I am 34 years old, and for most of my life, I have been the quietest person at every family dinner, and the only one who ever picked up the check. If a family that only calls you when their credit card declines sounds a little too familiar, stay with me, because this story starts with a designer cake and ends with a financial ledger that changed everything. I read my sister Tara's message 3 times. As a senior auditor, my brain is wired to read things from the bottom up, always looking for the final total. Other people look at a grand party and see a celebration. I look at it and see a massive number that has to come from somewhere. And, in my family, that somewhere has always been my bank account. Tara hadn't messaged me privately. She had sent it to the family group chat, which was a calculated move. Under her text came the pictures. A luxury banquet hall in South Delhi, decorated with fairy lights, a floor-length designer dress on a hanger, and a 60,000 rupee cake, shaped like luxury brand boxers. The caption read, "Mira deserves the best for her 16th birthday." Within seconds, my mother replied with heart emojis. My aunt praised the decorations. Nobody asked how it would be paid for. Because in our house, that question always had the same silent answer: me. I set my phone face down and took a deep breath, trying to stop the automatic reflex of solving a problem that wasn't mine to solve. But this wasn't the first time. Tara never asks for money directly. She sends pictures, lets the guilt do the talking. And by the time you realize what is happening, the deposits are already paid, leaving me to cover the rest. But this time, something felt different. Under my ribs, a decade of quiet math was starting to add itself up. You see, a pattern like this doesn't build overnight. It starts with one small favor. The first one was 8 years ago, when Tara's car broke down in the middle of summer. It was 75,000 rupees. "Just this once, Dia," she had cried. Then, it was a house deposit. Then, a phone bill. Then, a credit card bill that had quietly crossed 3 lakhs. Every single time. The excuse was the same. You are the only one who can help, okay? And because being the fixer made me feel loved, I always paid. I kept the receipts in a yellow folder on my shelf, a folder I never opened, because looking inside would mean admitting that my family only valued me for my wallet. I always wondered, what would I be worth to them if I ever stopped paying? I had spent years believing that counting money between family was cold. But what I was about to discover in the fine print of that South Delhi banquet hall was going to shatter that belief forever. What my family didn't know was that 2 weeks earlier, I had quietly started the paperwork to buy my very first home. It was a modest 2-bedroom flat in Mayor Vihar, with a view of a noisy parking lot. But to me, it was a palace. I had been saving for the down payment since I was 26, keeping the money in a locked account I never touched. My loan officer had been extremely strict. Do not move large sums of money, do not take on new debt, and do not touch your reserves before the final signing in March. To my parents, I was just the successful daughter with the high-paying corporate job who was doing fine. They didn't see the spreadsheets where every single rupee had a purpose. 6 lakh rupees wasn't a small favor I could easily ignore. It was the exact amount standing between me and the keys to my own home. If I gave Tara that money, my dream of owning a house would be gone. To understand why this trap was so deep, I called Tara, keeping my voice completely calm. I asked her what the actual budget for the party was, promising I wasn't trying to start an argument. There was a long, heavy silence on the line. Then she said, "Family takes care of family, Dia. That's just what we do." In my house, that phrase never meant everyone helping everyone. It meant the one who works hard must carry the ones who won't. I asked her about the deposits. Tara sighed dramatically. "Well, you already handled the banquet hall deposit back in October, so this is just the remaining balance." I froze. I barely remembered a frantic phone call on a busy Tuesday in October, where Tara claimed she would lose the booking date if she didn't get a card number immediately. I had read the numbers over the phone just to make her stop crying. I had completely forgotten about it, closing the yellow folder on my shelf like I always did now. With a cold feeling in my stomach, I opened my banking app to check that October statement. There it was. 1,25,000 rupees, charged to my card, under my name. And that's when the terrifying realization hit me. How many other contracts had my sister signed using my name? To understand my father's role in this, you have to know what I saw 2 winters ago. I had walked into his study looking for a phone charger, and instead, I found him sitting in the dark, staring at a credit card statement with his reading glasses slipping down his nose. It was Tara's statement. He was quietly writing a check to cover her debt, using the pension funds that were supposed to support him and my mother in their old age. When he saw me, he quickly hid the statement under a newspaper. We never spoke about it. My father wasn't a cruel man, he was just terrified. He genuinely believed that if the money stopped flowing, his children would stop visiting. He was drowning in the exact same system he was forcing me into. But on that Saturday afternoon, I decided the cycle had to stop. I opened the family group chat. Instead of saying a flat no, which always starts a massive fight, I typed a very professional question. Can we please see the itemized budget before we discuss who is paying for what? I hovered my thumb over the send button. I knew that the moment I pressed it, the illusion of the sweet, obedient daughter would be gone forever. I pressed send. For 4 minutes, the chat was dead silent. Then, the typing bubbles appeared. My aunt wrote, "Since when do we demand bills from our own family, Dia?" My cousin joined in. "Wow, it's your only niece's big day." My mother tried to play the peacemaker. "I'm sure Dia didn't mean it that way. Nobody sent a budget." In my family, a question about money is always met with an emotional attack. Because the entire system relies on you feeling too guilty to ever look at the actual math. Then, Tara took the manipulation to the next level. She sent a picture of my 16-year-old niece, Mira, standing in front of a mirror in that expensive designer dress, looking incredibly stressed. Under the picture, Tara wrote, "I guess I'll have to tell Mira her party is cancelled because her aunt wants a spreadsheet. D'you understand?" My chest went tight. I almost opened my banking app to transfer the money just to make the guilt stop. But as an auditor, I forced myself to look closely at the picture. Mira didn't look sad about a party. She looked exhausted by the drama of the adults around her. The next morning, I drove 45 minutes to Faridabad to see my mother, hoping she would finally take my side. But before I could even sit down, she turned from the kitchen sink and said, "You have always been the strong one, Dia. You have more than your sister. Would it kill you to just smooth this over? Just this once?" In my family, being called the strong one was never a compliment. It was an obligation. It meant my peace was always the price paid for everyone else's comfort. I walked out of the house without saying a word, realizing I was entirely on my own. As I walked to my car, I found Mira sitting on the porch steps. She looked up at me with her quiet, watchful eyes and whispered, "You don't have to pay for it, Aunt Dia," I heard Mom screaming on the phone. "I don't even want that massive banquet hall. I just wanted a small bonfire with my friends in the backyard." My 15-year-old niece had figured out what had taken me 34 years to realize. The grand party wasn't for her. It was for her mother to show off to a society that measures love in noise and expansive displays. I hugged her tightly, and in that moment, I made a firm decision. I wasn't going to protect the party. I was going to protect the kid. That night, I did the one thing I had avoided for 10 years. I took the thick yellow folder down from my shelf. I made a strong pot of coffee, opened a blank spreadsheet, and began entering the numbers, line by line, refusing to soften a single figure. By 1 a.m., my fingers were shaking as I looked at the bottom right corner of my screen. The total amount of money I had quietly given my family over the last 10 years was 34,20,000 rupees. Not a single rupee had ever been paid back. With 34 lakhs, I could have paid for my entire flat in cash. I had funded an entire lifestyle of dependency, and called it love. But the ledger showed me something even more critical. As I reviewed the contracts for the upcoming party, I realized my name was legally attached to everything. The banquet hall reservation, the designer cake deposit, and even the boutique layaway plan for the dress were all under my credit profile. Because my credit score was excellent, Tara had used my details for everything. I was the legal signatory. Which meant, with a cold sense of clarity, that if I had the legal power to hold these bookings, I also had the legal power to cancel them. I was the legal signatory. Which meant, with a cold sense of clarity, that if I had the legal power to hold these bookings, I also had the legal power to cancel them. I tried one last reasonable path. I sent Tara a long, gentle message, offering to contribute a fixed, generous amount of money for a beautiful backyard party that we could plan honestly, on paper, together, but to my family, a budget was an insult. Tara called me instantly, her voice trembling with rage. So, I'm just a line item to you now. You want me to apply for a loan from my own sister? Real families don't count, Dia. She slammed the phone down. And then, the countdown began. The banquet hall manager emailed me, stating that the remaining balance of 4.5 lakh rupees would be automatically charged to my card on file. Within 72 hours if I did nothing, the money would be gone, my credit line would be ruined, and my home loan would be rejected. Then my phone rang. It was my father. His voice was incredibly calm, which made his words even colder. This has gone far enough, Dia. You are the oldest. You have the good job. Pay the bill by tonight, or you are no longer part of this family. There it was. The absolute price of my admission into the family, spoken out loud by the man who had raised me. I didn't cry. I simply said, okay, Papa. At 11:04 p.m., I called the banquet hall's late-night service desk. A young manager named Kartik answered. I gave him my confirmation details, my card security PIN, and said the words I should have said a decade ago. Cancel the reservation immediately. He processed it. The booking was gone. Next, I canceled the designer cake and pulled my card from the boutique layaway. Within 11 minutes, the grand illusion of the Sweet 16 party was completely dismantled. I opened the family group chat and typed a final, calm message. I have canceled all the bookings in my name tonight. Love, Mira, but I will no longer fund things under the table. I will be at Papa's house at 7 a.m. tomorrow, if anyone wants to talk to me in person. Printed the 34 lakh spreadsheet, placed it inside the yellow folder, and set it by my car keys. At 6:50 a.m., I pulled into my parents' driveway and, Faridab through the kitchen window, I could see my sister's car. She had arrived early to turn my parents against me. At exactly 7:28 a.m., while we were all standing in the kitchen, Tara's phone chimed with a high-priority email notification. The subject line read, "Your reservation has been cancelled." Tara's face turned pale. "What is this?" she whispered, looking up at me. My father took a slow sip of his tea and asked, "Dia, what did you do?" I placed the yellow folder quietly on the dining table, opened it, and spread the printed sheets across the surface. "Before anyone talks about fixing this," I said softly, "I want everyone to look at what we have actually been fixing for the last 10 years. For the first time in our lives." The silence in that kitchen was filled with absolute, unvarnished truth. 34 lakh rupees of unpaid favors stared back at them. Tara screamed that I was bitter and selfish. My mother wept, and my father walked out of the back door, unable to face the reality of his own system. But as I stood there, in the middle of the storm, I realized I was no longer afraid. It was not a cinematic happy ending. My aunt stopped speaking to me, and my father didn't call me for a month. But my home loan closed successfully in March. I moved into my own apartment in Mayor Vihar, and the feeling of standing in a living room that was truly mine was worth every single tear. Tara ended up throwing a small, beautiful party in a local park with fairy lights and Mayor's real friends. It cost almost nothing, and Mira looked genuinely happy. 4 months later, I received a text from Mira. She had started a part-time job at a bookstore and had opened her very first bank account. Her message read, "Aunt Dia, can you please teach me how to make one of those spreadsheets?" I want to save up for a college trip without asking mom for money. Standing in my kitchen, I smiled. The cycle of silent guilt and financial manipulation had finally been broken. One generation early. Because sometimes, the most loving word you can say to the people you care about is simply, no.